Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 34 of the subject The Study of Society, and the chapter is Social Development. The topics to be covered are the nature and meaning of social development, the prevailing notions of social development, Indian experience of development after independence. The nature and meaning of social development. Development is a broad concept, and though interrelated, it differs from social change. Change is a value-neutral concept, whereas development is a value-laden concept. The notion of development is, in other words, the process of desired change. All cases of change do not indicate development. Egalitarian development is a desired goal, but it remains only an ideal. Egalitarian development, which focuses on the development of every individual in the society or of everyone, or it is based on equality, but it remains only an ideal. It is not in the practical aspect. In spite of development efforts, disparities in various dimensions of development continue to widen between societies, regions, and groups. Variations are observed when we compare various regions or countries. A controversial point whether underdevelopment and overdevelopment can be identified with any particular country. An important idea implicit in the classification of countries into developed and developing is that the former became a model for the latter. The developing countries may like to imitate or adopt the economic and technological systems of developed countries. So the developing countries, they may like to imitate, or they may like to model or adopt the economic, technological systems, social and political systems, and also the way the culture is there of the developed countries, to make them developed and to also give them a new outlook. Substitution of economic dependence by self-reliance emerged as an important indicator of development. So when one has to be economically independent, one has to be self-reliant too, and should not depend on any other economy. The nature and meaning of social development. The greater the self-reliance, the higher the levels of development. Endeavors towards self-reliance resulted in import substitution by stopping the purchase of goods from developed countries and producing them in their own country. So the import substitution was stopped, to purchase that was stopped, and the goods those were purchased from the other economies, they were started producing in the own country, and in this way self-reliance was focused on. The prevailing notions of social development. The world was divided into two, that is, it was a bipolar world with the capitalist bloc of United States of America on the one side and the socialist bloc of the Soviet Union on the other. After the breakup of Soviet Union, the Cold War has ended and the world has become unipolar, with USA as the most powerful nation of the world. The three worlds of development. The first world consists of North America, Western and Southern Europe. The second world had consisted of Soviet Union and the East European groups such as Poland, East Germany, Hungary, etc. The third world was, and to a certain extent still is, generally used to refer to the less developed or developing societies of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So the third world countries are referred to as less developed and still developing societies of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and where development, the fruits of development have not taken place in a full or in a complete manner. The capitalist model of development of the first world. The main characteristics of the capitalist model of development are provision for private ownership of property and means of production, means the ownership of the property is there, ownership of private property is there, and the means of production in the capitalist hands. Promotion of economic activities through private enterprises, and minimum possible state regulation and control on private enterprises. So the main characteristics of the capitalist model is basically private ownership of the means of production, promotion of economic activities, of transaction, of also buying, selling and purchasing, and through private enterprises, and minimum state interference and control on private industries. The socialist model of development of the Second World. The socialist path of development adopted by the Second World was seen to be opposite or dichotomous to the capitalist path of development. The former, contrary to the latter, is characterized by state ownership of property and means of production, public enterprises, and complete state regulation of economic activities. It means that the state will own the means of production and the property and the public enterprises, and also there would be state regulation in economic activities and political and social activities, and the state would regulate all the activities. The state would regulate the economic, political as well as the social activities, and there would be state interference and state regulation in all the activities. The main allegation against the capitalist model is that since it permits minimum state regulation, its economic system becomes exploitative in the sense that the working class people, proletariat, do not get their due share. So the main allegation against the capitalist system, or the main limitation, is that it has a exploitative nature in which the working class people or the proletariat or the workers, they do not get their due share and they are exploited by the people who are ruling them, and they do not get their rewards, and they are exploited in a continual basis. The capitalists enjoy a major share of the nation's resources. So the capitalists have a major share, or they enjoy a major share of the nation's resources. The socialist model was ideally considered as non-exploitative and egalitarian. So the socialist model is considered where the state would own the means of production. It is non-exploitative and it is focusing on equality. Private ownership and the lack of state regulation were considered to be important measures of exploitation of the weaker sections, and hence the causes of income inequalities. So private ownership of the means of production and lack of state regulation, lack of state interference, they are considered to be important measures of exploitation of the weaker sections of the working class, and hence it causes inequalities in income as well. The period of glasnost and perestroika led by Gorbachev, the erstwhile Russian Prime Minister, during the 1980s dismantled the communist political and economic structure. So it also dismantled the communist political and economic structure, the glasnost and perestroika that was adopted by Gorbachev, the Russian Prime Minister. The socialist model laid equal stress on both resource generation and equal distribution of income, and tried to change the social system in such a way that greater social justice could be ensured. So the socialist model which was adopted laid equal stress on resource generation would be there, and also there would be equal distribution of income, even distribution of income, and also in such a way that social justice would be promoted. The capitalist model does not see any major conflict in the interests of the two classes, workers and capitalists. So the capitalist model does not see any of the difference of interest between workers and capitalists. Development of the Third World. It's difficult to specify the model of development adopted by the majority of the Third World countries, as there are variations among them, dictated mainly by their historical and socio-cultural circumstances. So the way their historical conditions and circumstances, the socio-cultural circumstances permit them, the Third World countries have adopted various models of development, and there are also variations to which the models they follow. The idea of the third world is associated with the emergence of consciousness among developing countries of being exploited by the developed countries in the garb of monetary help and expert advice. So the third world countries, they had this consciousness, there was an emergence of this consciousness that developing countries are being exploited by the developed countries in the garb of giving monetary help or giving expert advice or giving them any sort of help, monetary or any other help. The social analysts have played a very significant role both in appreciating the help as well as analyzing the games of the big powers in the developing countries. So basically the social analysts they played a very significant role in also appreciating the help given by the developed powers and also the games being played by them. Socio-cultural dimensions of development. One of the popular notions that economic growth was a sufficient and a necessary condition to stimulate development of all the sections of society has been proved incorrect. The attainment of high levels of economic growth by some of the developed countries has not helped to solve some of their serious problems. And also, the popular notions that economic growth and it was a sufficient and a necessary condition to stimulate development of all the sections of the society, that has also proved incorrect, and the attainment of high levels of economic growth by some of the developed countries, and also that has also not helped to solve their serious problems, but still it has created more gaps between the rich as well as the poor. Sociologists now believe that it's necessary to lay stress on socio-cultural dimensions of development. To elaborate, social development includes proper satisfaction of basic needs such as food, shelter, and clothing. So, social development includes, or social development focuses on the following things: that there should be proper satisfaction of basic needs of the people, such as food, shelter, and clothing should be provided to every individual, and availability of essential amenities should be there. Essential facilities should be there, such as electricity, transportation, communication, and water. So, these essential facilities should be provided to each and every individual, whether living in urban areas or in rural areas. To elaborate, social development also includes economic welfare, that is, opportunities for employment and economic activities and high levels of living. Development of human beings, that is, enhancement of literacy, vocational education, moral education, and creative personality, etc. So, social development includes also the economic welfare, the earning of livelihood and enhancement of the quality of life, and development of human beings, their enhancement of literacy rate, education, vocational education, moral education, and also creative education. Approaches to social development, they may be discerned on the basis of two criteria: centralization versus decentralization of development schemes and resources, and unit of development, that is the focus of development, individual, group, village, etc. The first criteria given rise to two approaches, namely development from the top and development from the bottom. The second criterion gives rise to the three approaches: sectoral development, areas of development, and target group development. Development from the top, the approach of development from the top envisages the planning and execution of development schemes by the central or apex bodies of administration. So the development occurs from the top body of administration to the lowest level. The people accept the development schemes because they have neither sufficient resources of their own nor any control on the resources of the community. So it envisages the planning, the execution of development schemes also by the central or apex bodies of administration. Development from bottom, it approaches the exponents of the second approach of development from the bottom, on the contrary, believe the fairness of intentions and abilities of the people who need development. So the people who need development schemes are given or taken out for them, and it believes in equality and the fairness of intentions and abilities of those people. Utilizations of resources for development schemes is decided by the concerned people themselves or by their representatives at the local level. So the resources are also utilized for development purposes, and development schemes are also decided by the concerned people themselves or by their representatives at various levels. So development from bottom means the development from the grassroots level to the top reaches. Sectoral development approach refers to formulation and execution of schemes for development of a particular sector of economy like agriculture or industry. So sectoral development focuses on formulation and execution of schemes for developing a particular sector of economy like agriculture or industry. Stress was laid on technological education as well. Many institutes and colleges were established independently or in collaboration with other countries such as the United States of America, Russia, and England for the technological education. Area development. All regions are not equally developed. The underdevelopment of regions is due to the lack of infrastructural development, roads, railways, electrification, etc., or due to the problems of floods and drought. When schemes are devised for the infrastructural development of an area or region, we call it area development approach. The Command Area Development Scheme introduced in India in 1974 for the development of irrigation resources in certain regions illustrates this approach. Target group development. Target group approach has its focus on a particular category of people such as small farmers, women and farm laborers. So target group development means focusing on a particular group, focusing on a particular target group and developing them in a full manner. They can be small farmers, women, farm laborers, peasants. Schemes such as Small Farmers Development Agency (SFDA) and reservation of seats in schools and colleges and in employment for scheduled castes exemplify the target group approach. There is another approach to development which has its focus on the overall development of the people residing in a locality, village or town. This is known as a community development approach, wherein the people of that community, village or town are being developed and overall development of the people takes place. Indian experience of development after independence. After independence, India did not follow either the first or the second world. It adopted neither the capitalist, North American, nor the socialist model of development. It adopted a path of development in between the two models, which is known as mixed economy. On the one hand, India encouraged private business and industry and gave opportunity to big business houses such as the Birlas and Tatas and other medium and small size entrepreneurs. On the other hand, it has almost full control, at least in principle, over all the entrepreneurial and business activities. It has also full control over other entrepreneurial and business activities. Socialist path and mixed economy. The state also acts as an entrepreneur in setting up heavy industries such as the manufacture of steel and generation of electricity. The banks have been nationalized. The state has full control over railways and postal departments. These measures are illustrative of a socialist path of development where state is also involved in the development process. Entry of state in heavy industries was meant to support private enterprise in the sense that these industries did not yield high profits and required a long gestation period and high capital investment. So entry of state in heavy industries was meant to support only private enterprises, to give them high profits and also to give them high capital investment. It has been argued that big enterprises still dominate over the small ones and the industrial sector over the agricultural one. So it is still seen that the big enterprises, the big industries still dominate over the smaller ones and the agriculture sector over the industrial sector over the agricultural one. Sectoral development. Many policies and plans were adopted which showed results that were far below from the expectations. The major policies for the development of agriculture after independence were abolition of landlordism, zamindari, consolidation of land holding and land sealing. The sectoral approach got further accentuated in the green and white revolutions, that is development of cash crops and dairy products respectively. Community development and cooperative movement. The philosophy of this program was to educate, encourage and enable the people to develop themselves with their own efforts and resources. It was realized that a greater participation of the rural people in the preparation and execution of development schemes was essential. The important point is that there is no spirit of cooperating amongst the local people because most of the affairs of these cooperatives are managed by the government or semi-government officials such as the registrar, managing director or administrator. Target group planning. Integrated Rural Development Program (IRDP) is one of them which combines both the area development and target group approaches since it includes a command area development program. Under IRDP, there are special programs for employment like training rural youth for self-employment (TRY), SEM. So various target group planning in that rural development and rural training programs are organized for the youth. So that was all about development, sectoral development, rural development and the target group development. So these are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Differentiate between change and development and what are the 5 approaches to social development. That's all. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.